Friday. Welcome in, everybody, to the TDR Traded Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Hope you've all had a great week. Last week, we had some people working, some people in the holiday season, but the first full week back, man, psychedelics, cannabis off to a roaring start. Whether you look at it positive, negatively, news flow, it's a lot of attention going on in these spaces right now. HHS mania, we're going to dive into that as well. One of the biggest names, if not the biggest name in the psychedelic space, Christian Angermayer. He is the founder of Atai, of Apiron Investment Group, and as well the chairman of Atai Life Sciences. He's going to be joining us to talk about that $50 million investment from last week. Big news, to say the least, among other things. So let's welcome in TDR millennial entrepreneur Anthony Varrell. Good to see you. Hope you're all situated, knowing that you got back earlier this week. But man, what are we? What's today? January the 12th?
Today
Nothing
is
short of news, and more news pertaining to these verticals, huh?
No, it's been great. It's been great. I mean, we got that announcement yesterday about the HHS lawsuit. Could potentially be getting an unredacted document here shortly. It'd be great to see another step forward for the cannabis space.
Yeah, so let's begin with that. This is Into the Wire, segment 1 on the TDR Traded Black podcast, headlining the biggest headlines in cannabis, psychedelics, and crypto. So we'll begin with cannabis. And like you said, the rescheduling news involving the HHS lawsuits, the DEA, and more. So it was announced earlier this week that you said the heavily detailed August letter from the HHS to the DEA concerning rescheduling will finally be released after months of speculations and waiting. So what do you think? Why do you think, I should say, this was finally announced?
It was a response to the lawsuit that Matt Zorn and the guys over at the On Drugs newsletter had filed. They filed a motion and they filed a lawsuit via the FOIA to release more information regarding the HHS recommendation. Now, there's no clarity either way on the amount that it's going to be unredacted from the original form, which is about 97% redacted. But I mean, this is good. We can get some clarity into what the HHS was actually recommending, the science behind it. And I'd have to say thank you to Matt Zorn and the guys over at the On Drugs newsletter for filing this motion and getting some progress. From my understanding, January 18th is the deadline for them to respond with the actual substance in regards to the HHS reco. So it's got about a week. And it could, it's good. I mean, it brought some excitement back into the sector. People were expecting to see some aggressive price action today. Volume's completely down across the board, contrary to popular belief.
Does that surprise you?
I mean, kind of. I mean, volume's just anemic. I mean, we're not going to cannabis. Like I've said, it's now a show me industry. You're not going to get these hype headlines that are going to carry the sector to these aggressive moves. Like, people are waiting for concrete things to happen. And also keep in mind, this is only further releasing the HHS recommendation. This is not implying that the DEA ruling is going to come in tandem with this. So I'm closely watching. I think next week could get pretty exciting. But it's an exciting step forward.
Curious to see what will be on that report. If you had to speculate, is there something that you're, paying attention to or want to see?
No, not really.
No.
The breadth and depth of the research that went into it, and just their general stance on the scientific and medical benefits of the plant. We'll actually be able to see firsthand what the HHS thinks, which will be big, and which will also have further implications as to what the DEA ruling could be basing its decision on.
Yeah, but I think that people are really starting to understand how this industry works. We had Captain Obvious with the DEA reviewing last week, heavy volume, and you look at a lot of the share prices this week, them completely been retracted over this week. But it gives you a small glimpse as to if we, get some positive feedback regarding this report, and later, like I said, and continue to speculate regarding rescheduling, a sign of good things to come if it's positive, right?
Yeah. If it's positive. There's also no indication whether it's going to be negative or positive. I think there's less than a 1% chance that it doesn't come back positive. Everyone would be shocked. And I think the decision would have been a lot quicker if they were not going to allow the rescheduling of cannabis to S3, assuming
Yeah, Lucifer, Shad, you sound stuffed up. Hope you feel better, buddy. Yes, battling a head cold. In fact, last night when I went to bed, I took the daytime medication instead of the nighttime. So I was doing jumping jacks and push-ups at 4:30 in the morning. Couldn't really sleep. But here I am, midday on a Friday. Before we bring in Christian Angermayer, one thing I wanted to bring up too, Anthony, was what a week it's been, obviously, for the crypto space. What did you think of the SEC news and everything being approved with the ETFs? We've seen things stay relatively flat since that announcement, but needless to say, this is a big, big step in the right direction for the industry.
Oh yeah, it's a big step. The ETFs got approved. Bitcoin, huge candle to the upside, hit around 40,000, and since then it's been retracing. It's sitting at right about 43.6 right now. So it's down actually almost over 10% since it hit that high for the year, based on the news. I mean, there are a lot of people that are rotating out of GBTC, which was the original Bitcoin ETF, has higher fees than the rest of the cohorts in the space. So, I mean, we're seeing a lot of redemptions and a lot of selling from GBTC, which would cause selling pressure on the market. I mean, a lot of people that said this would be a sell the news event.
Yes.
After the first 6 hours and everything or 4 hours actually of trading and everything kind of settled in, they were right. I mean, it's in a downtrend right now. But interestingly enough, Larry Fink was on TV this morning actually talking about a potential Ethereum ETF next.
I know that. I caught that.
He's a proponent of tokenization. He's pro Ether. Felt like he was trying to sell me something, but at the same time, if Larry Fink wants to bring the narrative to Ethereum and validate the thesis that Ethereum is sound money and that it's an asset that's going to benefit fintech, technology, and the greater financial system at large going into the future, I'll buy it. One other thing that I wasn't thinking of until this morning that I saw on Twitter is, unlike Bitcoin, if you're a custodian of a spot Ethereum ETF, Ethereum that you're buying, you can actually stake and generate yield off of, which, in my opinion, for places like Fidelity, BlackRock, etc., that's going to be a big pro, that they can be generating yield plus the fees off of these spot Ethereum ETFs if and when they would get approved, which I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I think we can probably be talking about these at the end of the year, if best.
Well, needless to say, big week to say the least, and a step in the right direction. Guap, happy New Year, buddy. Hope you're well. Yonner of a week, he writes, in both crypto and cannabis. Jake, good to see you as well. Hell of a week for Christian sectors that he invests in. Needless to say, that was definitely a big week, I would say, because he's heavily into the cannabis, psychedelics, and crypto space. So on that note, let's welcome in the founder of Apyron Investment Group and the chairman of Atai Life Sciences, Christian Angermayer, who joins us. It's been a while, but here he is. Good to see you, sir. How are things?
Hey, Happy New Year. Thanks for having me. And as you said, like, the year couldn't have started better. So
I know, right?
Things are great. Like,
we had a lot of speculation and thinking that this was going to be a good year for some of these sectors that we cover in, but man, it is not wasted any time. You think of the news that you guys announced last week, combined with MAPS. There's this rescheduling cannabis, and now you've got all these ETFs and crypto, all happen within a 7-day span. So how are you taking it all in?
Again, I'm very happy. Like, I was on holiday before, so I'm very relaxed.
Yep.
So I want to say I'm going to take the weekend off, which is not true. I need to work a lot, but no, I'm I think it's also first of all, a little bit, we deserve it all. Like, we had 2 years where I think we all had to take a lot of shit.
You're right. We do deserve this.
We do deserve it.
Put a pat your back, Christian. Pat your back.
But also on a serious note, I think this year, if you look on the macro picture, I think interest rates will come down.
Yeah.
Let's see how much, but I think for the sectors we all dabbling in, from crypto to biotech as in general, not just psychedelics, just a reverse of the trend, which will give so much relief, and some stocks are taking or already reacting on it. So I think it's not just the start of the year. I think the start is a good preview on that we're going to have a good year, both in crypto and in biotech. And so stocks in biotech are so insanely cheap. It's crazy. I think biotech for me is one of the biggest opportunities at the moment, if not the biggest, as a sector.
Yeah. So you do think that interest rates are going to come down eventually this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it matter a lot. Like for what we are doing, it matters that they're coming down. And look, nothing is a fact, but like I think that's very, very likely. I know that there are some people who say, oh my God, it's going to be, I don't know, 6 interest rates declines, and some say less. It doesn't really matter. Like I'm like, the big picture is we're going to see a reversal in the trend. And that is the important thing for our sectors.
Yeah.
Now in biotech, are you categorizing psychedelics, longevity, everything that you cover within that lens
Yes,
as the biggest opportunity right now in the market?
Yes, so biotech is a sector, and
Yeah.
and obviously I'm very biased, like I think. But if you look what has happened, let's go back one step. Like in the 2 years of, let's call it biotech winter,
Yeah.
people in any winter, in any decline of a sector in the stock market, people don't want novelty. So practically biotech as a sector was hit very hard.
Very.
Psychedelics, and especially Atai, was hit the hardest, or compared to the index, was hit much harder, not because we did anything wrong, but because in a time like that, we have seen the last 18 months, people don't want novelty. They want, if they buy biotech stocks, they want the traditional, I don't know, cardiovascular drug, which you pop once a day. And as we all know, which is, by the way, I think, which is a good thing, is that we're changing the paradigm for mental health. We're like, don't want to invent something or bring to market which is keeping people hooked to one pill per day and not making them better. We're trying to bring a paradigm change, really trying to bring cure for all these mental health issues.
Yes.
Yeah. And it requires therapy, as you all know. Like, so it's not just, oh, I'm taking psychedelics at home. No, you need to go to a therapist, do it with them, and do actually an adjunct therapy sort of set regime. Like, so you're going to have therapy before you do the trip, weeks before, then you do the trip with the therapist, and then you have integrative therapy after. So, by the way, which is exactly the right thing for patients. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In times like the last 18 months, that's not what investors wanted to talk about. They were like, oh my God, will this really work? And by the way, not will it work. I met nobody, literally, who said this is not going to get approved. But I met many investors who said, oh, but I don't know how quickly will it be adopted, and like, this is so complicated, whatever. Yeah, and that's why they were holding off more than even for biotech. That's why Atai underperformed.
They just don't understand it, right, Christian?
Well, I think I don't know what they understand. Like, I think if you haven't done it yourself, and I think if you're not looking carefully at talking, you don't need to do it yourself. But if you talk to people who do it themselves, so have done it for therapy, I would say my answer is the following to all the, oh my God, how quickly will this be rolled out? Every single person, literally every single person I have met who have taken psychedelics for therapeutic use, all became an ambassador, meaning they wanted to talk to other people about it. Some of them just, totally fine, tell their close friends. Some of them, by the way, like my co-founder Lars Wilde, go on TV and talk to the world. Yeah. But I have met nobody who has been helped by psychedelics and who didn't want to help others.
Interesting.
So why is this so important? Once psychedelics will be approved, I see an almost viral effect that people will tell other people. They're already doing it now, by the way. Yeah. They tell other people, and people will show up with the therapist and say, I don't want to try that shitty drug or those shitty drugs. I will start right away with psychedelics because it helped my cousin, it helped my best friend, it helped my aunt. Yeah. So I think anybody who's just looking at the science, but again, every investor I meet is like, look, that these drugs going to be approved, no question, but it might take very long till it gets adopted. And I'm like, you're going to be surprised how quickly psychedelics will be adopted because the demand is already there. People want, they're just waiting, and then you have this right. So I'm very, very positive on not just the probability that we're going to get approval, but I'm very positive that we're going to surprise everybody how quickly these therapeutics will be accepted and used by therapists.
So go ahead,
Jen.
Well,
I was going to say, Christian, this morning you called Atai the biggest entrepreneurial opportunity you've ever encountered. Now, you've been wildly successful before this. We know with Aperon and the things in your past. Is that a changing of the winds? Is it the recent updates with Atai? What led to that statement? And I mean, how excited are you for the future?
I always said that. So it's not a change. I repeated it. It's like, and by the way, for two reasons. To one, obviously, because as an entrepreneur, you want to make economic success. Yeah. So but also because of, I'm really proud of what we're doing. Mental health is the number one problem of our time. By the way, individually, for every single human being suffering from a mental health issue, but also for society. I think we had that in previous talks. Like, I deeply believe that many negative developments we see in society are ultimately can be traced back to
just look at homelessness. Just look at homelessness. Homelessness is a function of it's not a function of addiction. It's mostly a function of mental health instability.
Yeah. And so I'm very proud that we helping or will help many people. And at the same time, because the market is so big, we're going to build an extremely also economically successful company.
Yeah. What do you think? I'm assuming that you're in full support and rooting for MAPS that rebranded to Lykos with the NDA submission. That's the closest thing to obviously having a drug come to market. But if they do get approval for the FDA, as you said, this is going to be sooner rather than later. Is that the big catalyst moment that this industry needs, you think, to continue to re-educate people on how they perceive it?
I think that's definitely going to be a super important milestone. I think because the question is like, I don't know, yes, it will be a very important catalyst. The only thing I was like, I think it's not the question if these drugs are approved. Yeah. Because like, again, every investor I'm talking to, like every person, like that's almost like a done thing. Like, by the way, for MAPS, for psilocybin with Compass, our holding, like with, and for the rest of what Atai is doing. I think the big doubt, I can repeat it, is what at the moment investors has, and which I think is a wrong perception, but the big doubt is how quickly will the medical system adopt the therapeutics once approved.
Yeah.
So
and how does that work?
Now is that now with that? Do you think that's a function of that we don't have the infrastructure right now, or that the traditional medical community will have pushback on it versus the traditional pharma methods that they're using now?
I think that's sort of I think it's everything. Like, they think like how quickly will therapists use it? The fact is, by the way, that every therapist I met like is eagerly anticipating what we're doing because they know it works. Then there is like, will patients go to it? Like, because like you obviously have to educate the patient. Then you're going to tell the patient, look, if you do psychedelic therapy, you're going to face your fears, whatever. Or by the way, here's still a Xanax. Do you want to take the Xanax? Yeah. So I think a lot of people think patients will be hesitant, which I don't believe at all. I just told you the virality. I think there is a lot of just wrong assumptions, which in total lead. By the way, also nobody thinks it's not going to be successful. They just think that it's going to take longer. Mm-hmm. But like, again, in times of higher interest rates, longer means if you do a discounted cash flow, means corporate value. So so it makes a huge in the models analysts are doing. I hopefully pull up the right number, but I can give it to you for Compass out of my mind. Please, whoever is watching, don't pin me down on 1% up or down. But I think that, and it's in my blog post, by the way. The reason when you email me, like whoever wants to read it, go on my LinkedIn. And I have 2 big blog posts, one last year, one this year, about the potential, what we're talking about. And in the older one from 2023, I wrote the exact number I'm trying to remember. But I think it was something like the analysts for Compass are assuming that just 5% of people who are eligible, think about that, just 5% of people who are eligible will take psilocybin. I think it's going to be 50 over time.
I think it'd be much. I think it's going to be much higher than that.
Why would you do the shitty stuff if you have something which can truly help you?
Yeah.
So it's the number analysts are calculating with of how many people are going to use it over time, and then again how quickly. It's different for the corporate value if the cash flow really comes in 2 years from now or in 7 years from now.
Yes.
Again, I think psychedelics will surprise positively on both, on how many people will use it who are eligible, and how quickly this will all happen.
That's a big difference. Analysts thinking 5%, you think 50. And I
Please
think
look it up. It's 4 or 5 or something like that. It's a crazy.
I think there's no way. Yeah, I think there's no way there's 5%. I mean, you're completely correct. I mean, there's network effects and virality to this. And also people don't want to take Xanax. They don't want to take Zoloft. They see people that they know get on these medications and they have deteriorating effects to their mental acuity, to their memory. Like the drugs they work, but they don't work well and they diminish over time.
Christian, I'll say one thing too.
I always say that. Think about it. Everybody who's watching, I'm very sure you have been at the dinner the last 12 months where somebody brought up psychedelics in a very positive way. Yeah. I have that all the time, even when people don't know who I am.
Yep.
Have you ever been at a dinner where somebody said, "Hey, I just started Xanax and it's awesome and you should do it as well"? No, because it's shit. Yeah.
No.
So but you see that. Like, I don't need to prove. My point is the proof is in the pudding, or how you say in English. Like, go out, like watch How to Change Your Mind on Netflix. Like, people are eagerly anticipating our success, and this is why the rollout will happen much quicker than we think.
Well, let's talk about some of your roadmap to success. Big announcement last week, $50 million investment into Beckley Psytech, which gains you exposure to Beckley's 2 primary clinical programs that are phase 2 studies. So with this announcement, it seems that you're thinking 5-MeO-DMT has a lot of potential. So is that accurate? And if so, can you maybe explain a little bit further?
Okay, so why is that announcement so important? Like, first of all, I always wanted to build not just a psychedelics company, but the psychedelics company. So I always said, look, and I see Atai already, even before the acquisition, we are the market leader. We have the broadest portfolio of psychedelics. We created Compass, which we spun out, which I still see in the family because we are the largest single shareholders of Compass. So, and the only compound which was missing, I call it the big 5. Yeah. So the important, famous, original psychedelics has been 5-MeO-DMT. So we had been not hesitant. We had been hesitant in a certain way because 5-MeO-DMT creates a very strong, very sudden experience, and the original way of administration has been inhaling. Yeah. And inhaling has proven in studies not done by Beckley or by us, but like in studies which are public, also some side effects. So for example, like recurring, like when I don't know what the English term is, when you like weeks later suddenly have a psychedelic
flashback. Flashback.
So, which is not good. So, but then Beckley, and I, by the way, side note, really admire the founder, Amanda Fielding, who's like the OG of psychedelics, together with Timothy Leary, Rick Doblin. So they had found a way to do an intranasal application, which so far, we obviously are in the middle of all the trials, but like so far has proven that that side effect doesn't happen. And this is why they're the only one who have an ongoing IND, meaning allowance to a study with the FDA. Yeah, and they're the furthest ahead in all companies looking at 5-MeO-DMT. So with their formulation, with their patent portfolio, and you remember it's my favorite topic, like you need to have full patent protection because we all want to make money with it as well. Yeah, it was the perfect thing. The second is they have psilocin. So psilocin is what actually comes then in your blood, like when you take psilocybin. Yeah, and one thing which is true, which sort of is a little bit the how you say, the salt of truth, or the grain of truth in the critique about the rollout is about how quickly the rollout goes, that ideally psychedelic experience would be very short, because obviously the shorter they are, the less time and capacity in a clinic and of people they need. So The traditional psilocybin experience with onboarding and offboarding is maybe around 6 hours.
Okay.
So the 5-MeO DMT experience is maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes. The psilocin experience is maybe 2 hours, less than 2 hours. So we believe very much that Compass and MAPS are the trailblazers for the industry. But the next sort of, and the real big commercial business lies in shorter acting psychedelics, ideally under 2 hours. And last sentence, because we already have one kind of psychedelic on the market. It's not what I would call a psychedelic, but there is Spravato from, which is esketamine from Johnson & Johnson. And this is also like a 1 to 2 hour experience. So, and what we see is, by the way, that the numbers of Spravato, the sales numbers are going through the roof.
They are.
So we're going to tap with our shorter acting psychedelics, we're going to tap into a market or into an infrastructure which is mentally actually already prepared, because it's just like replace Spravato with 5-MeO DMT, with psilocin, with DMT, which we're also developing. So yeah, so that's why it fits why the acquisition of Beckley fits so perfectly into our portfolio. And now I can truly say we are the psychedelic company. We have all major psychedelics.
So I mean, with the psychedelic assisted therapy, I mean, a lot of it is being able to process things, process trauma, process past experiences, and the psychedelic substances enable you to, I guess, cope or bring them forward. Do you not feel like a 15-minute experience is almost too short from a therapeutic standpoint to be able to actually process, versus like what you were explaining with psilocin, which would be anywhere between 1 to 2 hours?
It's a good question. So I would say what you said is correct, but it's not the only thing which is happening in your brain.
Okay.
And I'm just thinking like how I put it, like my spiritual answer would be, because I do believe, as you know, like, and I always want to make clear what is a personal belief and what is a scientific fact. But my spiritual belief is that you're working through it with, call it your soul, your subconsciousness, whatsoever. Yeah. And on that level, time might not be what we perceive it. Yeah. What we did see, by the way, is though that it needs to be a journey. Meaning what you cannot say, oh, I give you psilocybin, which is, let's say, 4 to 6 hours, and I pull you out midway. So it's whatever drug you take, but it's important that you let the drug do whatever it does. So, but then the outcome is very interesting. So, but then you also have things like neuroplasticity, like resetting the brain. We're gonna know more about it. I don't want to pretend that we fully know it. By the way, it also is what I said many times before. There is not the one size fits all in generally mental health, but especially also not within psychedelics. So what I truly believe is it's all about the connection or the trusted relationship between the therapist and the patient. The therapist knows the history, will have assumptions, what to take, what to try, and then the therapist might say, look, this is the psychedelic you should do because for X, Y, Z reason. Yeah. By the way, like a doctor does it with other stuff. Like if you have a bacterial infection, they're going to say, look, you need this antibiotics or this one. Yeah. And then hopefully the patient is helped in the first time, but it might well be that the patient is getting better, but not fully better. And then the therapist is like, you know what, let's do the same trip again, or let's try another one. Yeah. So it's not like, by the way, there is one other thing, which is I had this discussion, I do even think with you guys, when the Compass data came out, the phase 3 data, people were like a little bit like, oh, I would have thought that the percentage, and again, sorry that I don't have all numbers in my mind, but like I think the headline number was that more than 50% of people were helped. Yeah. So a lot of people said, oh, Christian, but I thought it's going to be 100 or it's going to be higher than 50%. And I want to remind people that clinical trials are obviously highly standardized. So all these people went in, got the same doses, and they did it exactly once. Yeah. I have so many friends who did psychedelics for therapy, and the first time didn't fully work. Why? Because they were anxious. And by the way, to a certain extent, especially with psilocybin, you can withstand the trip. You can say, nah, I don't want to go to the pain, to the trauma.
Yeah.
But then they realize that it's actually good for them. They feel a little bit better. And then they do it a second time. And that's the time it really works. So what I want to say, I deeply believe that in a real life setting, psychedelics will be proven or will be shown even more powerful than they are in the clinical settings, because therapists, again, can do it a second time. Therapists can say, look, we open you up with an MDMA therapy, but then we're going to do psilocybin or DMT therapy to really go to your trauma. Yeah. And that, by the way, there are it's like always me as the chairman for Atai talk about it, but it's not us doing it. But I know of therapists who do it underground or do it in countries where it's legal, and they doing exactly that. They using one psychedelic trip to prepare people, or often MDMA, to open up their heart.
Right.
Yeah. Then later on to really do the trauma healing. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, by the way, that's one more reason why I believe that psychedelics will be much more wildly commercially successful than people gonna see it, because in real, it's not like any other thing where you know exactly, it's gonna be better than we think.
Jake writes, also, we need to interpret results. Understanding Comp 360 was looking at TRD. He brings up TRD, and with this investment into Beckley, can you maybe kind of like explain to us what the competition, like there's not a lot of drugs. You brought up Spravato, which targets specifically the TRD. So in comparison to, say, major depressive disorder, MDD, related to DMT study, can you maybe explain like what the competition level is focusing on TRD in comparison to, say, MDD when it comes to drugs that are commercialized?
Well, I think what I should say, one step back, you always have to choose a lead indication. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the MDD and TRD are just the ones which are so severe that sort of showing an effect is sort of more likely if you're very, very bad. But therapists gonna use it then for multiple things. And again, I don't see it as a competition. It's the wrong word. It's like, it's gonna be a very synergistic portfolio. I see it like a tool set, and the broader the better. And the therapists need to decide which is the right one for the patient.
Okay. I want to go into your pipeline. There's a few people that reached out to us asking, you now have at least 4 to 5 potential catalysts this year. What are your expectations for the late stage data for BPL-003, which is the intranasal formulation of 5-MeO DMT?
Well, I wouldn't have done the acquisition of Beckley if I wouldn't be wildly excited about the data. I don't know it, but I'm very positive that this is going to read out well. But that's not knowledge. Otherwise we wouldn't have done the acquisition.
Yeah. When did the conversations begin with Beckley?
We know them since years. Again, it's a very, very small sort of industry, but we really did it over the last, obviously 3 months. It really intensified, but we were speaking since half a year. Should we not? Yeah.
Were the what was the acquisition just the biotech and the psychedelics portion with the drug development, or was it also the retreats and the larger enterprise at large?
Very good point. So under the Beckley brand, they have retreats, which is not part of the acquisition. So Beckley Psytech is their biotech, but that encompasses all they were doing in drug development, and we took the stake in Beckley Psytech.
Yeah, somebody wrote, and it was a really good question here. Mitch, I'm trying to think of where it was about how to. I'll get to it.
But until you're looking up, I want to tell everybody, again, not just that I think biotech is going to recover this year massively as a sector. Yeah, we do have a lot of catalysts coming. And
are you starting to get more inquiries from institutional investors and larger investors at large with the rates
6
tipping
weeks?
over?
Yeah. I told all my friends, because I was so happy. For 1.5 years, you felt like okay, nobody wants to talk about, again, biotech is a sector, nobody wants to talk about Atai. And then suddenly in December, I had the first call since 1.5 years of friends, investors like, hey, Christian, tell me what's going on at Atai. It looks really cheap. Like I was like, wow, the world is changing. Like, so we've.
Yeah, I feel like once everyone hears that rates might be getting cut, and then they can start to model out, especially with DCFs, how the cost of capital is going to be cheaper, and then biotech just perks up, just like crypto, just like everything in a risk-on environment. Everyone starts to want to get back to the table all at once after just neglecting it for like a year and a half.
And then you're gonna see stocks like Atai. I don't want to predict anything per Atai, especially, but in general, you see, I mean, Atai almost doubled the last weeks, but like that can happen again because like these stocks are so bombed out.
I know.
That if investors want to get back in, they can go very quickly.
What an entry point. That's what I say. But there's been some great announcements, let's face it, over the last 6 weeks that's grabbed a lot of people's attention. And it's not just been okay announcements. It's been absolutely incredible. But
maybe one more thing, like we had another great announcement. We just talked about Beckley. We also have a new version of MDMA. Yeah. Why is this so important? Because MAPS MDMA just has a very, very short patent life. Which comes out of the history of MAPS that originally, they're non-profit, they didn't want patents. Now they try to get patents, because otherwise you can't finance it. But like, so they have a very short patent life. And then MDMA, different than psychedelics, does have a little bit of toxicity, a little bit of downside.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and which is mainly your heart rate goes up, which is especially for people with either heart problems or older people problem. Then your temperature goes up, and then you have bruxism when you bite your teeth. But so it's not without risk. So especially for certain patient groups. So we're trying to work on a new version of MDMA, which because it's a new version, would have does have full patent protection and hopefully way less side effects.
Yeah.
And that's what the phase 1 data, which is it's called R, like the letter R MDMA. The phase 1 data was extremely encouraging. So if this holds in the follow-on studies, we have a fully patented, improved version of MDMA, which I don't need to tell you how massive that is. That was the other.
Now can something like that be parlayed, I guess, and leveraged in the protocol that MAPS is rolling out, or is that something that Atai would silo and you would obviously bring that business to market exclusively through Atai?
Well, we would bring it to market exclusively through Atai, but we would tap into the therapists who are already trained. So once you're a therapist, so you cannot really patent a protocol, neither Compass nor MAPS. So when these therapists are trained and a new, better version is coming, by the way, it's not just that they actually have to use the better version. That is very important to understand in biotech, which is called, by the way, from a pharma perspective, life cycle management. When your drugs are running out of patent, you as a pharma company, what Atai is morphing into once we're commercial, once we have products on the market, you want to have follow-on drugs who are better because by law, imagine you would be a doctor and you use, let's call it an older version of a drug on a patient who's 60 and he gets a heart attack.
You're gonna sue.
They would sue you and say, why didn't you use the better drug, which doesn't have the risk of a heart attack? So you see that over and over in all of the drugs. Pharma companies, by the way, this is how pharma companies keep up, so to say, patent life. That's why you have drug A, then they come with a new name, and it's just an improved version, and doctors have to use the new one because it's better.
So not to get too forward-looking, but MDMA therapy rolls out in its form right now. Our MDMA gets approved a couple of years down the road. They would have no choice but to sell through the RMDMA into basically all of the current infrastructure, as it would be a superior superior substance for the therapy.
Or would need to document why not.
Correct. Yes. Okay.
One last thing I'll ask you: are you looking at other strategic investments? Like, we saw, some of the mergers and acquisitions last year, like a great company like Small Pharma, they just ran out of cash, merged with Cybin. We've seen a lot of depressed assets right now in this space. Are you looking at other strategic investments beyond what you just announced last week?
Well, we did look. We continuously looking at stuff. What I can tell you without saying any names, I do believe, because we're by far the most cash strongest psychedelic company out there.
Of course.
We have beyond the net cash, which was at the last reporting date, 190 million or so. We have a credit line available of more than 100 million. So we are by far the strongest. So trust me, we looked at every single asset out there.
Did you? Okay.
Didn't do it. There was a reason not to do it.
Huh.
I guess better question. Do you see further consolidation
so
in
we
the
still
sector
looking,
moving forward?
I can tell you proudly, which I also wrote in my blog post, we do have now all major psychedelics. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's always, I'll never say never if there is an interesting niche, if there is, but this is a little bit further down the road. So psychedelics world will develop in 3 steps. The one is, as I said, MAPS, Compass, first mover. Yeah. Then come the short duration psychedelics, 5-MeO-DMT, DMT, psilocin. And then there will be, by the way, people completely forget that are not paying attention. There will be a 3rd generation psychedelics, which are completely novel drugs. You could say R-MDMA, although it's similar to MDMA, but R-MDMA is one of those, the first one, maybe in the public eye. But we have a very strong sort of development engine. We have many of these next generation psychedelics. At the moment, investors are not interested because obviously that's 7-8 years away. But that's our life cycle management for in 7-8 years. Yeah. So I'm more interested at the moment to push or to develop that. Then I don't see anything we should acquire now right away. Again, if there is a great opportunity, we are a buy and build model. So I'm always looking, but I'm very happy what we are at the moment.
Yeah.
One of our viewers writes, what does the distribution model look like? Will you be partnering with traditional pharma or building your own?
We don't fully know yet as Atai. Compass is a little bit further ahead and they have their own discussions. I personally, that's an opinion. Spravato took, and that way there was another reason why people were so cautious on how quickly psychedelics will be rolled out, was that the Spravato rollout at the beginning was very slow.
Yeah.
And I do believe that one reason was not just that they were the very first one in this new paradigm, but also that within the big J&J organization, a psychedelic-ish, because it's not fully a psychedelic, but like ketamine, didn't have a home, if that makes sense, or didn't have, if you have a sales force who's trained to sell the model of pop 1 pill per day, it takes a while, at least, that what J&J showed. Then it took off.
Yeah.
So what I want to say is I believe that a company like Atai and Compass, who are truly passionate about what we're doing, might be the better ones to do it themselves. But by the way, very positively said, because Compass, and as you all know, we have a stake in Compass, is first in our family. It could well be that Atai is in the future partnering with Compass and using the Compass sales force, and that we haven't discussed anything, but it's a very rational thing to think about.
Do you look at 2024 as being the most excited and optimistic you've been when looking at this overall industry from when Atai went public?
But it's just 2 years. I'm always optimistic because I think every year we added something very positive. But yes, in terms of this year, it will become not just for the psychedelic true believers, but it will become tangible for everybody. Yeah. So that, I think, is
I'm looking at it as yes, you guys are still doing your day-to-day work, but there are some things like FDA approving MAPS's MDMA protocol and the advancements of science and the overall rising of the overall sector. You look at this 2024 as probably the most excited you've ever been.
Yeah.
Nicholas Pinto, right? Christian sounds very clear. Great to hear from him about the psychedelic industry. Yeah, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Let's make this for. It's been close to 8 months since you're on last. Where's time go?
Okay, I know. But so we shouldn't wait that long for the next time.
So we spoke to a few friends of ours that go to cons in, was it July? Is it June or July? The Film Fest.
Oh, Cannes. It's in May.
Yeah, Cannes.
Is it in May?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's around the 20th of May.
Yeah. They're talking about how they got to get a bunch of podcasts set up on the beach. And I know we were in discussions with you a couple years ago at your event. So we might take you up on that offer and do some podcasts on the beach over there. But that sounds pretty much like a lot of fun.
Let's do that.
Listen, keep in touch. Happy New Year. And keep up the good work. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Christian. Talk soon.
Christian.
Thank you for your time.
I butchered that pronunciation, Cons.
Yeah, it's Con.
It's Con.
There's
Did I say Cons?
Yeah, you sound like a tourist.
I sound like a guy who's been up since 4:30 in the morning.
I do enjoy talking to him, though. I feel like excited in psychedelics again, which it's kind of like I know we cover it, but my main focus is mostly on crypto and cannabis. But it's I'm going to run through Atai here later today.
Big acquisition, to say the least.
Full update. Yeah, was it an acquisition or was it a strategic investment?
Oh, it was a strategic investment.
I thought it was a strategic investment.
It was.
The $50 million Beckley.
It just seems like you're spending that kind of money, you're acquiring somebody, but that's a huge investment.
I mean, I don't want to put him on the spot, but I mean, he was foreshadowing a little bit. I could see a day where Compass and Atai consolidate.
You think?
Yeah. I mean, they're going to have to make a point. They're going to have to make, there's going to become an inflection point where they're going to have to make a decision. Do we want traditional pharma and big pharma to come in and help us sell, distribute, and manufacture? Or do we want to become the new drug companies of the future and go it alone and build an enterprise? And I mean, Henry brings up a pretty good point. Vivek is talking about psychedelics. Robert RFK Jr. is talking about psychedelics, not only for veterans, but also for the new age way to treat mental illness.
Yes.
I mean, this sector is going to have staying power, and it already has staying power. But down the road, I could see Compass and Atai in some sort of tie-up merger, and then you've got the new Eli Lilly of the future. You've got the new Pfizer of the future that's actually helping people versus the pill-a-day model that's worked so well.
And then you got Nikki Haley saying we got to go to war in the Ukraine. Oh, I can't stand her. But
Nikki Haley's not going to sniff the White House, so I wouldn't be too afraid of that.
But I like what Vivek and Robert Kennedy Jr. talk about. It's just like connected with real life issues as to what's going on here today. Like it's not just, I don't know. Anyways.
So, I mean, I do think that there's a lot of research that needs to go into psychedelics. I don't think it's a one size fits all miracle cure by any means, but I do think that it's a much better alternative to what we have right now in medicine, which is the Xanax, Paxil, Zoloft cocktail that therapists give you, and then they just hope it works.
Well, he brings up a good point. Like, when's the last time you had a dinner table and somebody say, "Hey, I'm on Xanax. Like, this is incredible." You never hear that. And then the other thing that really actually stood out to me was that analysts right now are forecasting that only 5% of people will try psilocybin, which seems to me ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, you could just look at, I mean, maybe I'm biased because a lot of the people I know and I'm friends with are in like venture, tech, finance. Like the amount of people now that I know that are microdosing psilocybin as well as macrodosing psilocybin and leveraging it as more so like something to enhance neuroplasticity and just like the overall like life experience that they're having has gone hockey stick up. In the past year or two. People are talking about it, people are doing it, and people are liking it. No one likes any of the traditional pharma drugs for obvious reasons.
Cooperates. RFK's wobbly voice can't last for 4 years.
No, it's a shame because if he had a different voice, people would, I think, take him more as an authoritarian and listen to him versus kind of just discount him with the voice. But I mean, what he's saying for the most part is usually very in tune with what people actually want to hear.
Lucifer,
Sherrod Brown's the worst.
What was that? What happened to his voice? Is it just what's it called?
I have no idea. I think it's some sort of congenital defect or I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Listen, we're getting some few viewers that are logging off. They came on for the Christian interview, but listen, enjoy your weekend and we'll check back in with you on Monday.
I will see you guys on Monday.
Well.
Oh, Monday, MLK Day. I
don't no market on Monday.
Yeah.
Fans, let us know. Should we do a live stream on Monday? If so, we'll be here. If not, then enjoy your holidays. And
I'll be at the I'll be at the farm. I'll be at the Sunburn Farm with Jason Wild and Brady Cobb up in Central Florida.
Maybe I should fly down to Florida on Sunday.
Not if you're sick.
True. All right, brother. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks, Mitch.
I will see you guys then.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we